Hi, hello, and welcome to episode 7 of Ellie Asks. Those of you who, spot deliberate mistakes could see that actually last podcast was episode 6, not episode 5. So I think maybe I was just maybe a little bit put off by my new piece of equipment, my fancy new microphone, and obviously that just sent me a bit doolally when I recorded the podcast with Dan. So Dan's podcast was actually episode 6. This is episode 7 of Ellie Asks. Today I'm joined by Anna. I actually trained, she's a fellow coach. I trained with her. She was on the same coaching diploma. And she's coached me quite a few times, and she's a very interesting, and she'll have some really interesting and thought-provoking things to say today. I'm really looking forward to this podcast. She's chosen a really interesting question, which is something that I think when people have looked at the questions beforehand have gone, oh, I've no idea. I have no idea what to answer that. I have no idea. So when she chose it, I was like, yes, this is going to be a really good one. I'm really looking forward to that, because I think the listeners out there might have a bit of like, oh yeah, I don't know what to say about that, but have some thinking time around it to actually really think, yeah, what would I say? But I'll reveal the question a little bit later. I'm going to hand over to Anna to introduce herself, say a little bit about her business and what she's up to at the moment. So welcome, Anna. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a privilege.
Yeah, welcome.
Exciting. So I'm Anna. My business is called Connect 2 Coaching, and like Ellie says, we were on the same course together, which was brilliant. Before that, I was a teacher, so I worked as a teacher for nearly a decade and a manager as well for a little bit, and then moved into coaching it's coming up to, I think, probably 5 years ago now. And then alongside that, I also home ed my kids. I've got 3 kids, 8, 6 and 4, and so home ed them, so that takes up quite a lot of my time as well. And kind of in the process of trying to, it sounds a bit random and bizarre, but trying to set up a co-housing community at the moment, which is where, so it sounds a bit hippie, it sounds a bit like a commune. It's not a commune. Everybody has their own space and their own kitchen, their own house, but you kind of share land, and you share some resources and things like that, but everybody has their own sort of individual space. So
almost like you can buy in bulk and save money in that respect, and that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. So at the moment, I don't know whether this is what we'll get, but at the moment we're looking like a farm that's got 7 properties on it, and we'd never ever in a million years be able to afford it. But if you split it down, but with the properties, and everyone buys their own little property, it becomes more affordable, and then you've just got loads of space and land and outbuildings and things to do.
Sounds amazing.
So yeah. I don't know whether we'll to pull it off or not, but that's the thing that's kind of like occupying my brain at the moment.
It's going round and round. It kind of makes me think of when I had the girls, that somebody had said to me about it's I can't think about exactly the wording of it, but the thing around it takes a village to raise a child almost feels a little bit like that. Actually, you've got people on standby who you absolutely trust, who would be able to support you in so many different ways, which seems, because it felt quite lonely for me when I first had my children, and going, wow, what am I doing? So actually to have a community of people who get it and are there to support you, whether that's, I don't know, cooking you a meal every so often or whatever. And I know people do that anyway for people have babies, but yeah, I suppose it's a bit more of a long-term thing. That sounds amazing. That sounds right. I'm really interested to hear more about that. But let's get on to your question then, Anna. So Anna's question is, what is my gift? What is my gift to the world? So this is where I think people, when I said, I think maybe people will be a bit like, ooh, what do I say? I don't know whether it's a little bit, we'd kind of talked a little bit off camera before I started recording about how maybe our culture is a bit sort of like, oh, it's not good to say what I'm really good at, or a bit British to say, oh, we'll just keep it on the down low. Brits like an underdog. Brits like to keep it very modest and things like this. So that's why I really love the fact that you've chosen this one. So yeah, what's your gift to the world, Anna?
So I think for quite a long time I would have explained it just around like one of my core values, which is connection, and I would have said connection is my gift to the world. But I had a really good coaching session recently, and it kind of helped me to unpack it a little bit more. Because like you say, it's a bit of a weird thing, isn't it? It's kind of like your gift to the world. It's like what does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah.
And I think the best way to kind of think about it is it's the thing that brings you alive. You know, it's the thing that when you're most alive, when you're kind of either giving or receiving, because I think it works both ways. I think it's the thing that you love most to receive, and I think it's the thing that you love most to give. I don't know whether that's true or not, but that's certainly like how I experience it. And so then if I was going to unpack it a little bit more, it would be something like my gift is that if we have a kind of deep enough conversation and connection, I can, and not necessarily every time and everyone, but I can really see you, and I kind of it does sound arrogant, but it's this idea of being able to see someone's true self. And so it's something around that. So it's something to do with the depth of the connection and being able to see someone as they truly are, kind of behind all the walls and all the masks and all the things that we all just naturally put up to protect ourselves. And then the kind of reverse of that is the thing that I love most in the world. So I love that. I love getting to see someone as they really are. And then I just love being seen and known as well. So it's something to do with that, being known and knowing, but on a really deep, genuine level, rather than the kind of surface chit chat kind of level.
Having that sort of bit of vulnerability as well, so that when people are vulnerable and are willing to open up and be honest, I get that. I'm maybe coming from a coachy point of view now, but when you said the part about being it's when you feel most alive and what the thing you love to do and feel, and which made me, because obviously as you choose this question, it makes me think about the question and as well, and I was thinking, right, what's my gift? But that point there, the point you just made there, really made me think about the listening in coaching. And the fact that just by sitting and being and listening to somebody is so powerful, and the fact that, and I think when you do values work, I know previously we've done values work around when you're trying to find your values, often you can look at the things that really annoy you. And I think the thing that really annoys me is when I'm not listened to. So whether that be someone's preoccupied with a phone or something else and not being listened, I'm not being listened to, or whether they're just listening to answer or give their advice. And I think the thing with coaching is that we've found that when you listen just to be and understand where they're coming from, that can be really powerful. When did you realize this was the gift? Have you had, an abundance of gifts? Have you had previously, or is it something you've come to or think, actually, when I was younger, I thought this was my gift? Or, how have you come to this?
I think I kind of feel like we all have like a gift that's kind of like deep down in us right from the beginning. But I think you have different ways of expressing it as you get older. So I would have, I remember from quite a young age, people saying what a good listener I was. So I probably would have just started off with that, just being like, oh, I'm a really good listener. And then doing all the values work that we did on the diploma, on the coaching diploma, kind of realizing that like I had, various different values as everyone does, but that the one that kind of held everything together and the one that really mattered to me the most was this idea of connection. And then I think just this last year, and then most recently having this having a coaching session with somebody, and them helping me work through it a little bit deeper, and kind of thinking, oh yeah, it's actually it's this idea of really being seen and really being able to see people, and being known and knowing someone else,
So for the listeners, because like I said at the start of the show, almost like start of the episode, that people might be a bit like, oh, I don't know what my, I don't like to say I've got a gift. That seems like too, I think you use the word arrogant. I don't think it's arrogant at all, but I think there could be many people that are like, no, it's not my place to stand up and stand forward and say I'm amazing at this. Any advice regards to that? What would you say? Where could they start with finding their gift if it's something? Because I think it's really powerful. I think if you can know your gift, then if you know your gift, you know your values, it helps you on your road. So yeah, any advice of where you would take it?
Yeah, so I think there's quite a few different things that you can do, and there's got quite a few different exercises you can do. But I think one of the things is to look at, you touched on it earlier, like the things that you're really passionate about, the things that move you, that bring you to tears, and the things that make you angry, and that really kind of push your buttons. And I think kind of somewhere in the middle of those kind of three things, like, there's a kind of core that those things kind of hinge around. There's slightly different ways into it. But yeah, I think any of those things, the thing that just kind of like lights you up and you're just passionate about and you're just excited about. And when you're watching a movie, the thing that moves you to tears, whatever that might be. And the soapbox thing, the thing that you could just get up on a box and you could just have a good old rant about.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one, isn't it? That's because I think lots of people are like, oh, I don't like confrontation, but if there's something they feel really passionate about, they'll like go for it. I think probably I completely agree with you. I found with regards to values and things, the things that annoyed me and pushed my buttons were the easiest things to begin with, like the opposite things, to really go, to look at, rather than, because it's quite easy to know the things that you get annoyed about. So saying the things that annoy you and then doing the reverse of that and going, right, they're my real values, and what does that say about me? Do I live to those things? And I found values has been probably one of the most powerful things that I've done in my life, working out actually what's really important to me, so that when things happen in my life, I can go, right, I'm upset at the moment. Why am I upset? What's going on for me? Which one of my values does this attack? Which one of my values is it like prickling against? And once I've done that, it's almost much easier to accept or move on or make a decision around it. Do I carry on? Do I change it? Do I try and go back? Do I say something to that person? Whatever the scenario might be. Whereas previously, I think I just would have been upset about it and felt upset about it. So it's, I would always say to anyone to sit down and have some time. So maybe the listeners, as they're listening now, go in, what are my values? What are the key things that really matter to me? Because I found that it makes my life so much easier, because I can just say, no, I don't want to do that because it's not right. It doesn't align with my core values and things like that. So have your values, do they shape your world, your actions, how you parent, all those sort of things?
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're right about I think knowing your values it just makes things so much simpler, just day to day, every day, realizing, wow, this was a really good day. Why was this such a good day? Oh, because this and this. Or why was this such a crap day? Oh, because the things that I really care about. So like for me, it's stuff like creativity and fun, connection, like good communication, things like that, are the things that, if I get to the end of the day and I've had those things in my day, I'm going to feel amazing. If I get to the end of the day and I haven't had those things, at least some of them in my day, then, or if it's literally it's almost like maybe someone's trampled on those things in some way. Then it feels really rubbish.
So do you make it almost like, do you plan a day to make sure that you've got those values covered? Or if it's,
I'm sure that'd be a good thing to do. I don't. But that'd probably be a great way to go about life. It's more like that. I mean, that micro level, I think probably would be really, really helpful. Like I do it, I probably do that on a macro level. Like I kind of look at my overall life and like how, are there places where I can get all of these things kind of overall, say in a month. But I wouldn't do it on a sort of like day-to-day basis. But I think it would potentially be a really useful exercise. Yeah.
Kind of going off sort of the gift thing now, and just because I think probably quite a lot of listeners would be, I was really interested in it, so I'm hoping that other people would. When I first met you and you told me that you homeschooled your children, I think my eyes nearly bulged out my head, and like I was like, oh, wow, you know, couldn't believe it. I mean, it's not so different. I mean, I think there's been a lot of people that have obviously had to homeschool their children.
Everyone knows how to do it now, don't they?
In recent months, but maybe it's just about. But I think in recent months they've had to do it, but have been. I think there's been a lot of people who have been like, right, okay, schools are open now. My children are going back, like I need a rest sort of thing. But so to go from, you know, to actually say, this is my choice, this is what I want to do, I'm just really interested in what your I suppose the thought prior to it and why you decided to homeschool your children, and also maybe how that links with your values as well. I think that might be interested in it. Does it link with connection as well?
So I was home ed. I was homeschooled up until sixth form. So I think a lot of people didn't even realise that it was a possibility, obviously before COVID. So I kind of always knew that it was there as an option. And my oldest two are both boys, and they're both very active. And I think just knowing things about them and who they were as people, and I would have definitely, my oldest went to a nursery, and I would have continued if they would have done a sort of flexi school arrangement where he could have gone in part-time. But he came home so tired, and so for me, the initial decision was just, this is the right thing for him. Like, he needs to be able to run about outside in the woods and be able to get rid of all his energy, and just have a different, I guess potentially it is to do with connection, in terms of like just wanting to be more connected to nature and the outside world more, you know. And I like with home ed that they can connect with various different ages, you know, they're not just in a single peer group. But I don't particularly want to, I don't know, like it's difficult, isn't it? Because I think when you start talking about this, it's very easy for people to feel like judged, or like, oh, you're saying that what we're doing isn't, do you know what I mean?
I certainly don't feel like that. I mean, my children, well, my eldest has only just started reception this academic year. She'll go into year 1, but I certainly don't feel, and when I talked about it with you, it was more mind blown, because obviously I'm a teacher. Well, I've come from a teaching background. I was a primary school teacher, and actually I'm probably in the best place to home educate my children, but it's certainly not on my radar, and I certainly don't feel judged by, I think it's like, I suppose it's a little bit like the whole bottle breastfed type thing scenario, isn't it? You know, but I wonder whether that all comes back down to values again, and how secure you are within your own, and that that actually that's fine for that person. But it won't work for me. Wouldn't work for me, and I'm not sure it would work for my children, and that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that, and exactly the same as, you know, sending your children to school. You know, it wouldn't necessarily be right for you and your children, and that's absolutely fine. I think I found, since working out my values and having coaching and doing the coaching diploma and everything, that I never used to think I was judgmental, but actually I really was. Because I didn't understand people like I understand people. I didn't understand myself, actually. I think that's where it is. I didn't understand myself as much. That's the self-awareness, the growth through coaching that coaching has brought is huge. You know, it's been massive. So I thought I was very much live and let live and whatever, but I think I was a bit more like, well, why are they doing that? That's really strange, and oh, I wouldn't do that. So therefore, it's not right. Whereas it's very much more like, it's not right for me, but doesn't mean it's not right for other people. And that whole live and let live, and do what you seem and deem right for them. And I know you're the type of person that actually, if the children came to you and said, I'm really struggling with this, or I'm really struggling with this, and the fact that I don't go to school and I see other people going to school, then that, you know, you would have that conversation and that discussion anyway, wouldn't you? So
it's just occurred to me as you were speaking, actually. I think probably the way that it does tie into my values is connected with the identity stuff, in that I love that I'm able just to completely follow their interests. So whatever they're interested in, we can just kind of go off, we can do a project on that, we can kind of integrate the maths and the English into that, and we can just kind of go with that. And I think potentially that's how it does connect in with my values, because it means I can, I can just help them. To me, it feels like I can help them to be who they are and just kind of follow who they are.
Yeah, because actually, with the best will in the world, as a primary school teacher, you were always told to look at your cohort, and if you had a heavily boy cohort, you wouldn't do certain topics, or you'd look at certain topics that would be very massively interesting. But with a class of 30, you're going to have some children there that are not going to be necessarily interested in that topic whatsoever. Whereas for you, you can totally go with and then education for them is exciting and interesting all the time. And one question that did pop into my head though, do you still have school holidays? Or do you just kind of run with the same sort of thing all the way through the year? How does that work?
So we kind of vary from year to year. Like some years we've taken the school holidays. Sometimes we're just in such a good routine that I'm just like, let's just keep the routine going. And then sometimes outside of school holidays, we might just kind of have a bit of a break for whatever reason. So we kind of do have breaks and we do have holidays. Sometimes they're with the school holidays and sometimes they're not. But because they're still quite young, mine. So we only really do a couple of hours a day anyway, of kind of sit down sort of scheduled work. We always want to see, my oldest always wants to see his friends that are in school during the school holidays.
I think, and when everyone was having to homeschool their children, I did a video on my Facebook page saying, look, don't panic, don't worry you don't have to teach them from 9 till 3 every single day, because at the end of the day, when you take out lunches and you take out break times and you actually, as a teacher, you stand at the front or you do a group, and then they're off doing, yes, they are working, but they haven't got one-to-one. The one-to-one time, or the 3-to-1 time that they have with you is so much, concentrated, isn't it? So actually they get so much more from you than they would ever get from and this isn't me having a go at any teachers whatsoever, I've been there, that's me, but so much more, because just with the best will in the world, there's one of you and potentially 30 children, if not more, in Key Stage 2 children. You can't get around everybody to give the attention that you give your children. I totally take my hat off to you. I think you're amazing, absolutely amazing. And I'm sure that there's been many listeners that would be like, I take my hat off to you as well, Anna, because I wouldn't be able to do it. So I don't think definitely won't be a judgment thing. I'd like to think that it's more of a, wow.
Yeah, this is just something different. This is just a different way.
Yeah, totally different way. The other thing that we talked about, flipping back to what is my gift to the world, around that whole culture of things, and around how it isn't in our culture to stand up and say I'm really good at this. Any thoughts around what's going on for people if they put themselves out there and say something like that?
I think we have a tendency to, there's a guy that I follow who I really like, who talks about that we tend to either posture or collapse, and that we find it hard just to be in a kind of like composed place. And I think potentially it's connected in with that, in that like we feel like, it feels like, if I say my gift is this, I'm kind of like bigging myself up. So instead I'm just gonna like keep myself small and not make a big deal about what I'm good at, and I think and I'm sure it's cultural, like that's kind of how we're taught, isn't it? We're taught to kind of like bring each other down. And I heard something really interesting, I don't know who said it, but they talked about like there's this kind of scale, and if somebody kind of 1 to 10, and if your friend kind of drops down into kind of like 3 or 4, everyone will come round and try and pull them up. And I think the place where the culture is happy is kind of between 6 and 8. But if someone tries to go for 9 or 10, then we're all a bit like, oh, no, like back into the kind of like, this is the space where you can be like, that's, don't get too high and don't get too low, like we'll help you.
Yeah, we need to bring you down a peg or two or something, you know, we need to bring you down, and it's like loads of like, oh, it's just banter, it's just banter. And I think people you know, almost like, oh, I'm really good at this, come on then, show me, you know, wow me sort of thing, rather than going, Brill, good for you, you know, applaud you for putting yourself out there and being vulnerable, because actually it is a really vulnerable place to be if you say, you know, I'm really good, this is my, almost like this is my superpower. Which has just reminded me of something that happened in one of my coaching sessions, that I very much wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm quite I will show my emotions, you know, quite freely. It made me think about when you said, what do you cry at in a film or something like that? Well, that's me. I'm just like, my husband will turn to me and like, are you crying? I thought you'd be crying, you know? So I'm like, but it's usually to do with family and children and love. Actually, it's love. I cry when I'm passionate about something and I love something, you know, that sort of thing. And but it's just I think that it helps to think about what those values are and where it's going. And I've completely lost my train of thought.
That's all right, don't worry. I was just going to say, when you were saying the things you cried about, I was like, because to me you always are such a caring, compassionate person, and you've got a real gift of kindness. And so that's what kind of sparks in my head when you said that. I
remembered superpower in my coaching session, superpower, that actually, because I feel the world, I'm so like emotional about it, almost like I see the world in such an emotional state. And I always talk like crying and being emotional as a negative thing. And then I've kind of realized that I cry when I care, and not that I'm weak, or that it could be seen as weakness. It's actually when I feel passionate about something, and almost like I see the world, that my superpower is almost to see the world as a almost taking everything in and taking it all on board, not walking through sort of oblivious to it all and just going, no, I'm not taking it in at all. So that's, I think, maybe a gift that I've, just as we're talking, has come up, is actually I see the world in almost technicolor emotions. You know, I feel real sadness, but I feel great joy, and I feel, as I'm walking round, as much as my husband and I, it was our wedding anniversary on Tuesday, and we went away for a couple of days, and we were sitting outside this pub just having a drink, and this lady came walking down the road with what I assumed was a daughter, and it turned out it was, and they sat, and I just thought, wow, she looks amazing, she looks lovely, and they sat at a table near us. And when I popped to the toilet, I just walked over and said, I just want to let you know, I think you look absolutely lovely today. She was like, oh, thank you. Anyway, I popped to the toilet, and then when they were leaving, she went, you've totally made my day. Well, I was nearly crying at this point because I'd made her day. I just felt, and I said, oh, I'm getting emotional, but I really meant it. It was dead. It was really genuine. And I wanted her to know, because I think I want to raise, you want to raise, but if you notice something about somebody, tell them, because why are we keeping it in? So, but the fact, again, I feel the world so emotionally that it made me nearly cry with her saying, thank you, you've made my day. And I was like, you're welcome. It was really easy. It was really easy. But, I think that's maybe a little bit of a gift. So I'm just wondering, of the listeners out there, whether they can be vulnerable enough, or dig down a little bit and say, what's my gift to the world, and how do I portray that, and where am I showing it?
And I think what you said just then is actually a real key. Like you said, oh, that's easy for me. And I think that's a real key to it. I think it's the things that are just super easy and just really natural to us. And so almost to the point where it's like, that can't be my gift. Like, anyone can do that. Everyone can do that. That can't be my superpower. That's just normal. Which of course it is for you, because it's so deep inside of you, like it is. And so I think that can be another way for the people that are listening, kind of like trying to figure it out. It's like, what's just super easy for you that someone else might be like, oh, how do you even do that? I don't get it.
I think that's brilliant. That's ace, actually. That's really good, isn't it? Because people, they don't see it as a superpower, because they don't see it as a gift, because it just comes really easily, and it takes somebody else to sort of say, oh no, that doesn't come easily to me. But I think although with sort of very intelligent beings, we still kind of walk around the planet thinking that people think and feel the same things we do, and react to situations in the same way as we do, even though we know they don't. But are really shocked. I always find in coaching sessions that people are really shocked when you kind of point out that maybe they feel differently about the scenario, and not everybody wants to, I don't know, not everybody wants to get married and have children. Not everybody would behave like that. Not everyone's upset if you don't reply to a text message or whatever it might be. Everyone's a bit like, oh well, whatever. Thanks, Anna. We've come to the end of episode 7. It's definitely episode 7. Oh yeah, obviously my new mic lost my inability to count. I think that's what it was. But thanks again, Anna. It's been brilliant, and we've covered so much more than what is your gift, and I've loved every minute of it. So thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me, Ellie.
You're welcome. Take care.